The film begins with a young man named Liger who helps his mother, Balamani, sell food in a market every day in Karimnagar. They had moved there from Mumbai after Liger's father passed away. One day, while Balamani was selling, a group of thugs led by Molesh approached her, demanding money for protection. And Balamani, who was not afraid of them, stood up to Molesh, scolding him for bothering the market traders. On the other hand, Molesh, unable to respond to Balamani's boldness, turned his attention to Liger, who was quietly watching the situation. There, Molesh ordered his men to prepare their weapons and get ready to beat Liger, who appeared to be a weak young man. Just as Molesh and his men were about to harass Liger, another thug named Ali ran in, terrified because a group of thugs was chasing him, wanting to kill him. Ali begged Molesh and his men for help, but Molesh, who was actually a coward, refused. Instead, he pushed Ali into the middle of the crowd of thugs who were ready to attack him. The scene shows Liger, a young man who doesn't like seeing others get hurt, stepping in to help when a group of thugs tries to kill Ali. Using his skills in Jeet Kune Do, a martial art practiced by Bruce Lee, Liger fights the thugs one by one, surprising everyone with his abilities. After Liger saves him, Ali is very grateful and even starts to see Liger as a hero. When Ali asks for Liger's name, he's surprised to find out that Liger has a stutter, which makes it hard for him to answer. Later, Balamani suggests they go to a Jeet Kune Do dojo in Mumbai, so Liger can improve his martial arts skills. However, when Liger arrives, the other students, especially one named Ganapath, mock him for his stutter and don't believe in his abilities. Despite the teasing, Liger doesn't seem to be bothered. Soon after, Balamani registers Liger at the dojo, meeting with Christopher, the trainer who was once an MMA fighter. Like the other students, Christopher doubts Liger's skills because of how he looks and speaks. However, he still decides to give Liger a chance to join the dojo and train. The scene shifts to Christopher asking Balamani to pay a monthly fee so Liger can become a student. However, Balamani tells him that she doesn't have the money and asks if Christopher could train Liger for free. Christopher is surprised by this request, wondering why he should train Liger for free, especially since they are strangers. He also mentions that his dojo isn't a charity that offers free lessons. When Christopher refuses Balamani's request and tries to leave, Balamani suddenly brings up Christopher's past, mentioning how he failed to reach the MMA finals in 2004 because he was defeated by a fighter named Bolram. Hearing Bolram's name makes Christopher stop in his tracks. Balamani continues, explaining that Christopher's loss to Bolram was his first ever defeat, and although Bolram made it to the finals, he tragically died in the ring after being knocked out by his opponent. At that time, Christopher becomes curious about how Balamani knows so much about his past and Bolram's history. Balamani then reveals that she is Bolram's wife, and Liger is their son, the child of the man who defeated Christopher. After hearing this, Christopher, who was initially against Liger joining the dojo, changes his mind. He agrees to let Liger train for free, but on the condition that Liger works as an office boy at the dojo, helping with cleaning. Without hesitation, Liger and his mother agree, and Liger officially joins Christopher's dojo. The next day, Liger starts his work at the dojo, busy cleaning the Jeet Kune Do training area. While working, Liger is teased again by the other students when he mentions that he idolizes Mark Anderson, a legendary MMA fighter and his lifelong role model. Liger dreams of becoming as successful as Mark in the MMA championships. Hearing this, Ganapath and the others make fun of Liger's dream, especially since he's just an office boy at the dojo. Liger gets angry and silences one of the students. This leads to a fight as Ganapath and his friends try to gang up on Liger, who is still upset by their taunts. Fortunately, Christopher arrives just in time to break up the fight. Afterward, Christopher advises Liger to control his emotions and not let other people's words get to him. He warns Liger that if he doesn't learn to stay calm, he might be sent back to Karimnagar. Wanting to keep pursuing his dream, Liger listens to Christopher's advice. The scene continues with Liger joining the other students for a jog around the dojo. During their run, they meet students from another school who are also exercising. And Ganapath, feeling confident in his martial arts skills, arrogantly insults the other students, which heats up the situation. This leads to the other students getting angry and challenging Ganapath and his friends to a fight, causing more chaos. Upon knowing that, Christopher steps in to stop the fight. After the situation calmed down, Sunju, the trainer from the rival martial arts school, started insulting Christopher. And Sunju, who is an active MMA fighter, even tries to hit Christopher in front of his students. Before he can, Liger steps in, grabbing Sunju's hand and telling him not to touch Christopher. Shortly after, Sunju, annoyed by Liger's boldness, hits Liger a few times, but strangely, Liger doesn't react as if he didn't feel the punches. This makes Sunju even more frustrated, and Christopher quickly steps in to break them up, telling his students to leave the area. Later, Liger goes to a nearby cafe to buy coffee. While he's there, a beautiful girl named Tanya, who is a famous social media influencer, suddenly approaches him. Liger is surprised when Tanya starts scolding him, accusing him of looking like the profile picture of someone who often writes mean comments about her online. There, Liger explains that he doesn't even have social media, but Tanya is still convinced that Liger is one of her haters. When Tanya notices Liger's Jeet Kune Do uniform, she realizes that Liger's school is the rival of her brother Sunju's martial arts school. This makes her even more certain that Liger is her hater. Feeling uncomfortable with the accusations, Liger decides to leave. Tanya is shocked that Liger dared to walk away while she was still talking. Angry, Tanya decides to go to Liger's dojo to confront him. A little while later, Tanya and her friends show up at Christopher's dojo, carrying a pocket knife. At the same time, Liger is busy cleaning the dojo, where Christopher's students are training. Tanya sees Liger and signals him to come closer. Confused by their unexpected visit, Liger starts to approach Tanya. But just then, Christopher calls Liger to the center of the dojo to spar with the other Jeet Kune Do students. And Liger, knowing he couldn't argue with Christopher, went to the center of the dojo where the other Jeet Kune Do students were already underestimating him, thinking he was weak. When Christopher asked who wanted to fight Liger, all the students eagerly raised their hands, confident they could easily defeat him. Ganapath was especially eager, begging Christopher to let him fight Liger, but Christopher chose another student instead. Soon after, the fight began, and Liger quickly took down his opponent, surprising everyone. Christopher then called for 2 more students to fight Liger, ignoring Ganapath's request again. In the second round, Liger dominated once more, defeating both opponents easily. Still not satisfied, Christopher sent 3 more students to fight Liger, but Liger defeated them all in a short time. Even when Christopher sent 4 students at once, Liger remained unbeatable, taking them down with just a few moves. Finally, Christopher called Ganapath to fight Liger. As Christopher expected, Ganapath couldn't match Liger's skills, and his punches didn't affect Liger at all. When Christopher told Liger to counterattack, Liger landed a single punch that sent Ganapath flying, proving that Liger could easily defeat him. Frustrated by his loss, Ganapath tried to gang up on Liger with the help of all his friends, but Liger was unstoppable and managed to defeat all of Christopher's students without getting hurt. On the other hand, Tanya, who originally disliked Liger, started to become interested in him after seeing how skilled he was in fighting and defeating all his opponents. Her friends were also impressed by Liger's martial arts abilities. Meanwhile, Christopher called Bulamani to let her know that he planned to enter Liger in the upcoming MMA championship, which would take place in a few months. Bulamani was overjoyed, knowing that Liger's dream of competing in MMA was about to come true. When Liger went back to Karimnagar during the holidays, Bulamani gave him some advice. She warned him to stay away from girls while preparing for the MMA championship, saying that getting involved in love could make him lose focus and lead to defeat. Liger listened carefully to his mother's words. In the meantime, Tanya secretly followed Liger to his home in Karimnagar and visited him there. Liger was surprised by her visit and even more surprised by her change in attitude, from being cold to acting sweet towards him. During the visit, Tanya teased Liger and revealed that she was interested in him. Liger felt the same way and started to like her too. The next day, Tanya went to the temple to pray. Bulamani noticed her and was surprised to see a young person praying at a temple usually visited by older people. Impressed, Bulamani approached Tanya and praised her for coming to the temple. However, Tanya wasn't there to pray sincerely cause she was just trying to impress her social media followers. When Bulamani realized this, she was upset, especially when Tanya removed her shawl, revealing her revealing clothes in the temple. Despite Bulamani's scolding, Tanya didn't care and argued with her, causing a scene. When Liger heard about the commotion, he quickly came to calm his mother. When Tanya saw Liger and heard him call Bulamani mother, she realized that the woman she had been arguing with was Liger's mom. This left Tanya feeling worried, knowing that Bulamani now had a bad first impression of her, which could make her relationship with Liger difficult. Later, back at the dojo in Mumbai, Liger couldn't stop thinking about Tanya. Noticing this, Ganapath and the others, who had become Liger's friends, suggested that he go to a nightclub where Tanya and her friends often hang out. That night, Liger and his friends went to the nightclub, where they found Tanya, who was drunk, happily welcoming Liger. During their conversation, Tanya revealed that she really liked Liger and even found his stuttering to be cute. The next day, Sanju saw a post from Tanya on social media where she was with a man at the nightclub. He immediately questioned Tanya about who the man was. To protect Liger, Tanya lied and said that the man with her was Ganapath. Because of this lie, Ganapath became the target of Sanju's men. They found Ganapath on his way home and beat him up badly. Ganapath, unable to fight back, was left bruised and hurt. When Liger and his friends heard about it, they quickly went to help Ganapath, took him to the hospital, and then brought him home by train. While on the train, Liger and his friends accidentally ran into Sanju's men, the same ones who had beaten Ganapath. Wanting revenge, Liger challenged them to a fight. Shortly after, Liger and one of Sanju's men started slapping each other, not realizing that a police officer was on the train. The officer, seeing the fight, pulled out his gun to stop them and ended up taking both Liger and his opponent to the police station for causing trouble on public transportation. Because of this, Christopher was furious with Liger and his friends. As punishment, Christopher hit all of them with a rattan cane while scolding them for their actions. When Liger returned home, Bulamani, who had heard about Liger getting caught by the police, was upset with him. She scolded Liger, reminding him to be careful with his actions so he wouldn't ruin his MMA career, especially over a girl. Bulamani advised him to stay focused and even called Tanya, asking her to stay away from Liger while he prepared for the MMA championship. One night, Liger couldn't resist his feelings for Tanya, so he decided to meet her. They were about to kiss when suddenly a wooden block was thrown at Liger, stopping them. It turned out that Sanju and his men were there, ready to confront Liger. Tanya tried to calm her brother down, and Sanju demanded that Liger confess his love for Tanya. Because of his stuttering, Liger struggled to say it, which frustrated him, leading him to fight Sanju's men. Seeing this, Tanya felt disappointed and decided to leave with Sanju. The next night, a heartbroken Liger stopped Tanya and Sanju's car on the road, wanting to know how Tanya really felt about him. Tanya told Liger that she didn't love him and that all her words of love were lies. Liger then asked why she said his stuttering was cute. Tanya explained that she only said it because she was drunk. Since that night, Liger has been feeling depressed because of his broken heart. Bulamani reminded him to stay strong and not let himself be distracted by girls again. She encouraged him to rise above the pain and prove to everyone, especially those who hurt him, that he could win the MMA championship. With his mother's encouragement, Liger slowly began to forget about Tanya and focused on preparing for the upcoming MMA match. With Christopher as his trainer, Liger trained hard for weeks, determined to win the championship. On the first night of the MMA tournament, Liger stepped into the ring to face his first opponent, Philip. Using his martial arts skills, Liger won his first match by knocking out Philip with just a few punches. Meanwhile, Sanju also won his first fight against a fighter named Dhaval. In the second match, Sanju faced Shankar, who was from Christopher's dojo. During the match, Sanju seemed to dominate, making it hard for Shankar to keep up. Seeing this, Liger, who was watching from outside the arena, tried to distract Sanju, giving Shankar a chance to fight back. Despite this, Sanju managed to overpower Shankar and win the match. After the match, Sanju was still angry with Liger for what had happened earlier, so he jumped out of the ring and tried to attack Liger and his friends. Then a commotion broke out, but the officials eventually managed to calm everyone down. After the semifinals, it was announced that the final match of the MMA event would be between Liger and Sanju. As they entered the ring, Sanju made a video call with Tanya and showed it to Liger. During the call, Tanya mocked and insulted Liger's martial arts skills, but Liger tried to stay calm and focused on the match. Soon after, the final match between Liger and Sunju began, and both fighters seemed evenly matched. However, Sunju managed to choke Liger. During this, Sunju's men pointed the phone, still on the video call with Tanya, toward Liger, so he could hear Tanya belittling him again. Annoyed by her insults, Liger fought back against Sunju. Suddenly, the bell rang, signaling a break, but Liger and Sunju continued to brawl because Sunju didn't like Liger fighting back. The officials had to step in to separate them, and the referee gave both Liger and Sunju yellow cards as a warning. Not wanting to be disqualified, they returned to their corners to rest. When the match resumed, both Liger and Sunju gave it their all, trying to win the championship belt. At that time, Liger kept looking for a weakness in Sunju and eventually found an opening, delivering a powerful move that defeated Sunju. With Liger's victory, Tanya felt embarrassed for having underestimated his abilities. After Liger's victory, he returned to Karimnagar to see his mother. There, Balamani was proud of Liger for winning the MMA match. She told Liger that his victory was something Bolram had always dreamed of, as Bolram had once lost in the final match, which sadly led to his death due to a fatal attack from his opponent. Later, Liger went to a food stall to buy some food for his mother to celebrate his victory. The local people, noticing Liger, were excited and wanted to take pictures with him. A reporter even came up to Liger to interview him about his new MMA championship title. Despite his stutter, Liger shared his plans to continue his MMA career at an international level, aiming to make India proud in other countries. The next day, Liger's motivational words quickly went viral, and many people even created songs about him. The residents were excited about Liger's plan to compete in a world-class MMA tournament. However, the government did not support Liger's dreams and rejected Christopher's request to send Liger to the international MMA event. The government explained that they couldn't provide sponsorship because MMA isn't a popular sport in India and they didn't see it as beneficial for the country. This rejection made Liger and his fellow MMA fighters at the dojo feel sad. Even though they had a chance to compete internationally, the government's lack of support for MMA was disappointing. In the middle of their sadness, Ali suddenly arrived at the dojo to meet Liger. Ali explained that he knew Liger and the others couldn't go to America to compete in the world-class MMA event because no one was willing to sponsor them. Feeling grateful to Liger for saving his life in the past, Ali promised to help Liger and his friends by finding a sponsor. Soon after, Ali quickly contacted his friend, a businessman named Pandey, who lived in America. After explaining the situation, Pandey didn't hesitate and agreed to sponsor Liger for the international MMA event. Overjoyed, Ali asked Pandey to arrange VIP plane tickets for Liger's team, but Pandey refused, saying it would be an insult. Instead, Pandey offered to send his private jet to pick up Liger and the team. This news made everyone in the dojo very happy. Soon after, Liger flew to America and visited Pandey's luxurious home to thank him for his support. Pandey told Liger that he only wanted to see Liger carry the Indian flag on the international MMA stage. Liger confidently promised to make Pandey's dream come true, grateful for the sponsorship. After completing all the necessary arrangements, Liger was officially registered as a fighter in the international MMA event. On the first night of the championship, Liger prepared to face a British fighter named Darren Bill. Soon after, the crowd's cheers filled the arena, and as soon as both fighters entered the ring, the match between Liger and Darren began. In the first round, Liger struggled as Darren kept attacking him. However, Liger fought back, launching his own attacks, and by the end of the round, he even managed to choke Darren. During the break, Christopher noticed that Liger was losing motivation and gave him some encouraging advice. With renewed determination, Liger returned to the ring for the second round. He attacked Darren relentlessly and almost won the match, but the bell rang, signaling a break before he could finish. In the third round, Darren came back strong and managed to knock Liger unconscious with a powerful attack. Back in India, Balamani was watching the match and shouted for Liger to get back up and fight. Miraculously, Liger heard his mother's voice, which gave him the strength to stand up and continue fighting. Even though he was exhausted, Liger refused to give up. He kept attacking Darren, who eventually became overwhelmed and couldn't fight back. Finally, Liger won his first victory in the international MMA event that night. After the match, Liger called Bulamani, who scolded him for being too weak against his opponent. She reminded Liger not to get hit so often and told him to think of every opponent as someone who had taken down Bolaram. This, she said, would fire up his spirit and give him more strength in future fights. Liger listened carefully to his mother's advice. In the next match, Liger faced a Russian fighter named Dmitry. Both fighters showed off their martial arts skills, determined to win. At that time, Liger gave it his all and defeated Dmitry in just one round, securing another victory. Next, Liger continued to win in his following matches, defeating Bruno from Germany and a South Korean fighter named Lee. In another match, Liger faced Mosi from South Africa and won quickly. He also defeated Liang from China and Ramses from Denmark with ease. In his next match, Liger faced Boon Nam from Thailand, who was quite strong, but with his determination, Liger won and earned a spot in the final round. To celebrate Liger's success, Pandey threw a party in his honor. During the party, Pandey revealed that he was the father of Sanju and Tanya. Pandey then introduced Tanya to Liger, surprising Liger, as he didn't expect that his sponsor was the father of his ex-girlfriend. After the party, as Liger was about to return to the hotel, Tanya approached him and offered to drive him there, as she had been asked by her father. There, Liger couldn't refuse. However, when they arrived in front of the hotel, a group of unknown people suddenly kidnapped Tanya. Liger tried to stop them, but he was beaten up, and the kidnappers got away with Tanya. Without hesitation, Liger rushed back to Pandey's residence to share the bad news. Shortly after, the kidnappers called Pandey, demanding money to settle an old debt. Pandey then explained to Liger that he had borrowed money in the past to buy a 5-star hotel in America. Unfortunately, the pandemic had ruined his hotel business, making it hard for him to repay the debt. Although Pandey had sent a check to cover the debt, the kidnappers' boss refused it and demanded cash instead. Hearing this, Liger decided to help Pandey save Tanya from the kidnappers. That night, Liger went to the kidnappers' hideout with an empty suitcase, trying to make them think he had brought the ransom money. When he arrived, a group of female fighters stopped him and checked the suitcase. When they saw it was empty, they attacked Liger. Liger was confused about how to fight back since he didn't want to hurt the women, so he focused on dodging their attacks. Soon, another group of female fighters arrived in a car to help beat up Liger. One of them used a Krav Maga move that knocked Liger down, and he ended up in the hospital. After the incident, Bulamani flew to America to check on her son's condition. Meanwhile, Pandey called Liger to his residence and expressed his disappointment in Liger for acting without permission. Pandey told Liger that his actions could have put Tanya in more danger and demanded that Liger take responsibility for the mistake. Pandey then admitted that he knew about Liger and Tanya's past relationship and their breakup. He revealed that their breakup was actually part of Tanya's plan because she truly loved Liger and was willing to sacrifice her feelings for him. According to Pandey, after Bulamani warned Tanya to stay away from Liger to avoid distracting him from his dream of becoming a world-class MMA fighter, Tanya realized that her presence might hold Liger back. So, Tanya purposely acted like she hated Liger to help him focus on his goal, especially with the upcoming MMA championship in India. Her plan worked, making Liger more determined to win every match. Pandey also shared that the main reason he decided to sponsor Liger was because Tanya kept pleading with him to help. After hearing this, Liger became even more determined to find Tanya. On his way, he remembered one of the female fighters who was an expert in Krav Maga, so he headed to the martial arts training place. As Liger expected, he found one of the female fighters, named Laura, at the training ground. Without hesitation, Liger confronted Laura and demanded to know where Tanya was. Feeling cornered and not wanting to get hurt, Laura finally confessed that Tanya was at Sandy Valley Ranch. With the information from Laura, Liger quickly rushed to Sandy Valley Ranch. When he arrived, he saw a group of cowboys holding Tanya. There, Liger was shocked when he realized that the boss of the kidnappers was none other than Mark, the MMA legend he had idolized since childhood. Liger expressed how much he admired Mark, sharing that he knew many things about him and had looked up to him for years. And Mark, flattered by Liger's admiration, asked why Liger had come to the ranch. Liger then asked Mark to release Tanya. Mark agreed, but on one condition: that Liger had to pay off Pandey's debt. Liger, who had no money, was confused. Seeing this, Mark offered another option: that if Liger could defeat him in a fight, he would free Tanya. At that time, Liger tried to avoid fighting Mark, but Mark, growing impatient, fired his gun near Liger to intimidate him. Realizing he had no other choice, Liger accepted Mark's challenge. Meanwhile, back at the MMA arena, the final match, where Liger was supposed to compete against other top fighters, was about to begin. Christopher, Ali, and Bulamani panicked when they realized that Liger was missing from the training room. Back at Sandy Valley Ranch, Liger and Mark prepared for their fight. As soon as the fight started, Liger launched an attack, but Mark knocked him out with just one punch. The Cowboys, watching the fight, immediately took out their phones to stream the match live on social media. When the MMA committee learned about the fight between Liger and Mark, they decided to cancel the final match and instead broadcast the fight between Liger and Mark, the American MMA legend. The crowd roared with excitement, eager to watch this legendary battle. The fight was also broadcasted in various places so that more people could watch it. In the fight, Liger attacked Mark again, but Mark easily knocked him down with a single punch. Despite being knocked down multiple times, Liger refused to give up. He remembered his mother Bulamani's advice to think of his opponent as the person who had defeated Bolram, his father. This memory gave Liger a renewed strength, and he attacked Mark with everything he had. Even though Mark was his idol, Liger was determined not to lose, especially because he wanted to save Tanya. After several fierce attacks, Liger managed to choke Mark and even bit his ear. Although Mark tried to fight back, Liger overpowered him and knocked him down. Just as Liger was about to hit Mark with a baseball bat, Mark admitted his defeat in front of everyone. With this victory, Liger successfully saved Tanya. At the same time, Bulamani, who was at the MMA building, felt proud seeing her son achieve his dream of meeting and fighting his idol Mark. The audience cheered loudly for Liger's victory, celebrating his success. Even though Mark was defeated, he didn't hold any grudge against Liger. Instead, he felt happy to have fought against a fan with such amazing fighting skills. At the end of the film, Mark invites Liger and Tanya to take a selfie together. This photo is later shown proudly displayed in Liger's home in India. The film ends. The moral lesson from this film is sometimes saving your ex-girlfriend from kidnappers might just involve fighting your childhood hero. So always be prepared for anything. And maybe keep a baseball bat handy just in case.